are there pests such as voles, moles, rats, mice, rabbits, deer, and such in this kind of gardening method? I'm Justin Hitt from Prosperity Homestead. So the answer is yes. So what you've got here, these are rabbit turds right there. And those are not rabbit turds that I spread out as fertilization. And these holes right here, these are probably mice or voles. So, and as you can see in this particular area, the cover crop has not taken over. And there's two reasons for that. One is the amount of residual crop on the top. So this residual material that a lot of people will scrape off and burn. We don't scrape it off and burn. In fact, we simply rake it around and then put the cover crop in anyway. So one of the things that we do is we grow these heavy, thick cover crops on. Then we flail mow them down. And then we do what's called light tillage. So we're going to till at most 1 inch or 3 inches, depending on what we're trying to do. Most of the time it's just 1 inch, and it's simply to just break up that. So you see how that, we just want to chop the top off it. And then we have our organic matter on the beds. But because we have these tall cover crops, and because we have our thick layers of mulch on top of the beds as the plant starts to come out, we do have mice, birds, rabbits sometimes, and such. So here is how we handle that. First off, you grow for the family. So you grow for your own family. And second, you grow for the community. Now, what's included in your community? Well, part of your community is both your neighbors, but also the wildlife. It's okay for us to lose a little bit of crop because of some mice, because of some rabbits, because of some deer. Now, there's like an 8-foot fence around this 2-acre garden area. So we don't usually have any deer getting in here unless the gate's open. But again, if a deer comes in here and there's high cover crop, they're just going to eat cover crop. Nobody really cares. If we plant extra, they'll eat the extra. We don't really care. But ultimately, to reduce the mice, rabbits, and other small vermin, because even in my little nursery bed down there, the squirrels have been coming in and eating the nuts, we have open airspace. Now, what does that mean? The open airspace is the clear paths. You can see the paths that I'm walking on. In fact, here's the path that I'm walking on. Those clear paths, the mulch on top of the beds, and not having many trees out here allows predatory birds to come in here. Now, we're not trying to attract predatory birds because there are other types of wildlife here or other types of livestock such as rabbits, and the rabbits are in hutches, but the chicken, goats, such as like that. We don't want some big predatory bird to come in and eat those things. But right here where we are in the woods, and there's actually a hawk's nest. I don't know if you can see that up in the tree, but there's a number of predatory birds that watch this garden area for us and will come down here and sweep up. Owls, hawks, I don't know if there's any falcons out here yet, but they'll come out here and they'll sweep up the small animals when they cross these cut areas. So what you'll notice in this particular design is there's a lot of paths, and these paths are clearly mowed. So you can see I just came down a path. All these paths are clearly mowed. And God have mercy on the squirrel or the rabbit or whatever animal tries to cross one of these paths when there's a bird out here paying attention to what's going on. Because that bird will sweep down here. We've seen it a number of times. The bird will sweep down and catch the little creature and take it off to the creature heaven known as dinner. And so you may have on the grass-fed garden system, you may have on the heavy, thick cover crop, or the where you're keeping a lot of crop residual on, because that crop residual feeds the soil with organic matter. You may have instances where mice, voles, muskrats, all kinds of wild animals are going to come out here. But we've planted a little bit extra for them. We've also designed the area so that it has a good, strong visual from our predatory birds. Now, we're not going to put up any owl deterrent. We're not going to put up any predatory bird deterrent, but maybe in the future we might put up like a fake owl somewhere or a fake snake or something. That kind of works well. Now, speaking of snakes, you might be saying, well, Justin, with all this high cover grass, aren't you concerned about snakes when the weather starts heating up? Now, I will tell you, there are black snakes in here. There are a variety of different snakes, but I've never seen a copperhead. I've never seen anything to be concerned about. And even when we have a high cover crop, so this is a pile of manure that just didn't get spread out well, but you can see right here, the daikon radish, even when we have a high cover crop and we know that there are mice out here, I haven't seen a snake that I've been concerned about. In fact, the snakes will eat off the mice, and I rarely see any mice out here, even when everything is growing strong. So if you're concerned about the wildlife, you can deer-proof it with a good fencing. You can have clear and open pathways, so that, and you want a little contrast. So on the pathways, you want to put down mulch or something if it's a smaller garden, so that the predatory birds can see the contrast. And I don't think any of these gates are going to keep out a fox. So I have heard foxes crying out here, but I have not seen any foxes in the garden. But I assure you, if there are mice out here, there will be foxes out here. But again, we have enough space that we don't really worry about that kind of thing. And in fact, there's a little bit built into the design so that those natural elements are working on our behalf. So if something's flying down over here, it's better that they fly over these areas and get a squirrel than it is for them to fly over the chickens and get a chicken. Now, they do get the chickens sometimes, but ultimately, we're not attracting these birds. They already exist here, and we're managing the space. Now again, because we use the flail mower or we use the scythe to cut down this biomass and use it as mulch, we don't really have as many creatures as you might imagine. So I know in a neighborhood, people are concerned if grass gets too tall because they're afraid in a neighborhood, they're afraid if grass gets this tall that they're going to be like, you know, like rats and stuff in it. You know, the rats and them are going to come in here. It just doesn't work that way. Even grass like this, we see a lot of hairy vetch here. We see a lot of wild onions. We got some wild onions right here. You see a little bit of grass in here. I see a lot of coat clover. The mice and stuff are not crawling around in it because there's no food. There's cover, and we want to minimize cover by mowing the fence lines and mowing the access points. But once that animal runs from this cover over to the other cover where there might be food, they're going to get predated. If the weather's warm enough, the mice are food. Now, are we worried about having a large number of mice breed out? It's not likely, because we are doing some light tillage, but we're also digging frequently. We're planting in new plants. There's people in and out of here. There's even a dog that runs around in here sometimes when there's people. I don't see the problems that a lot of people describe on the message boards or describe on Reddit. In fact, I always wonder if the people on Reddit are actually doing anything, because there's all this hypothetical stuff. So here's another area. It's got wildflowers and some bulbed flowers. I don't really see them up as much as the other area over there with bulb flowers, but a lot of wildflower seed can attract mice and rats and squirrels and all kinds of stuff. Again, we're not too concerned about that, because after the end of the season, we come out here and we flail mow, and we end up with all this stuff. See all this nice little organic material. We don't take away any organic material. All that organic material composts in place and becomes part of our soil ecosystem, and so that we have greater abundance in all areas of our growth. We are also putting out lime periodically, and we're also, you know, I'm walking through here all the time. We're not really that concerned. I rarely ever see a mouse, unless it's really hot. But again, we're not too concerned about it, because we've got a system designed to handle that. And ultimately, worst case scenario, if we have an outbreak of voles, moles, mice, or whatever, we bring the chickens out and we let the chickens come out here and predate things. Now, we have to come out here and watch the chickens, because if it's a good eye line for a hawk or a predatory bird, it's also a good eye line to eat your chickens. So you do need to come out here and babysit that a little bit. But again, the chickens are scratching up the soil. The same thing we're doing with our shallow tillage. But the chickens have the ability to dig down in that soil and get themselves a mouse, or to chase down a snake, or whatever. But can you see how we're working with nature? We're not inventing new ways of doing things. We're observing the natural environment. We're creating opportunities for interaction, and we're ultimately producing a greater level of abundance, not by increasing the inputs, not by putting in additional work, not by coming out here and slaving and toiling over the soil, but by the design of the area, so that we get maximum interaction in the positive direction. Deep bedded cover crops give us nice deep roots in the soil. The voles, the moles, the worms, All this stuff is telling us we have a healthy ecosystem, but it's tilling up the underneath the soil so that we only have to fork it maybe every couple of years. Even our light tillage is designed simply to terminate the crop, but I don't till any of these slopes. I just slice that, such as the scything that was done here. I just use it as mulch because, again, that deep mulch protects our soil, retains moisture, returns nutrient to the soil, returns that abundance so that we're now cycling nutrients on site rather than bringing new nutrients in. We're losing very little water to evaporation, and overall we're creating an ecosystem of abundance. Yes, mice, voles, moles, everything you can think of is likely out here, but they aren't likely to get to a population where it's going to be a problem because of the way the whole thing's designed. If you have questions about what I've covered here, if you've got a deer problem, a rabbit problem, all kinds of problems that can happen in gardens, ask your questions below. I'll be more than delighted to answer them. I'll be more than likely to be able to point you to a good resource to get you started. But I wanted to show you how powerful this environment can be. And I know it looks beautiful and you see all the cover crop, but there are bare spots out here. Actually, there are deer prints sometimes. So the deer might be able to get in here, but ultimately we've planned for that and we've designed in the abundance. If you're ready for a design plan for your property, if you're ready to be food secure and protect your family against economic hardships and changes in the supply chain, then you want to visit me, Justin Hitt, at prosperityhomestead.org. I'm going to refer you to some resources because we're real busy out here all the time, but I'll refer you to some resources that will get you started quickly. And of course, if you ask your questions in the comments or you visit the website at www.prosperityhomestead.org, I will be more than happy to answer your questions and just really help you get to the next level. Again, I'm Justin Hitt with Prosperity Homestead, where we help property owners transform their land into high utility value, high food security, and do it without a lot of inputs, including labor. I didn't have to help this cover crop grow. This cover crop killed more weeds than I could ever kill with pesticides. In fact, it turned this grass, and I'll just close up right after this, it turned this kind of wiry grass into basically a garden bed. Again, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.